Edith, my grandmother, had breast cancer. She had a mastectomy, she had treatment, but unfortunately she passed away at the age of 42.
My granddad was a firefighter for Greater Manchester, and he was diagnosed with throat cancer. Unfortunately, got the better of him. Had a pretty nasty fight with it, but such is life, unfortunately.
Eileen, she was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 40. She had a mastectomy and she fully recovered, and she lived for another 28 years, and then she lost the battle with a different cancer, passed away from bowel cancer and leukemia.
My nan's brother, he was also a firefighter. He recently died of cancer as well. Again, that was prostate cancer, that one.
My dad, he, being a man in his 60s, he found a lump under his nipple. He described it as like the size of a 2-pence piece. Being a man, not knowing that males can have breast cancer, probably a little bit of ignorance as well. He didn't really do anything about it.
Literally, 2 weeks ago, was it, I text you? My nan was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then we're talking about this. I was like, right, if this isn't a sign to get this pink firefighter thing kicking in the UK, What is?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Firefighters podcast. Today is a really quick flashpoint where I'm speaking with my good friends Dean Keeber and James McCall, and we're talking about something really unique which we just want to give some real attention to with regards to the Pink Brigade and the Pink Firefighters that are now operating in the UK and that I have a privilege of being part of. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, the Pink Firefighter Association has the purpose to bring together firefighters and other persons wishing to help, support, provoke, promote and coordinate all initiatives aimed at developing the fight against cancer. Now, if you're a long-term listener to the podcast, or even if you're a new listener to the podcast, if you go back to episode 39, this was the first time we learned about the Pink Firefighters. Wendelin Click is a French firefighting officer and is leading the charge of our European team against the fight against breast cancer. Wendelin had some personal experiences with some friends that had suffered from it. And today I'm joined by my two friends where they're going to share their experiences of both men and women who have had to battle with this toxic, horrible disease that affects so many people. We're going to go through some scary statistics at the minute where 1 in 2 people in the UK will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Breast cancer is in fact the most common type of cancer among women in the UK. And again, as you're going to hear today, men don't get out alive. About 370 men are diagnosed with this disease every single year, and amongst that 80 of them die. And if you listen to the end of today's episode, you'll hear about one of our first events that we're going to do as the Pink Firefighters. And as we move into the new year, COVID permitting, we will be doing this challenge out in the fresh air. Everybody will be vaccinated, everybody will be jabbed up, and we'll be socially distanced to the max. If we're able to go ahead with this, our hope is that it causes a little bit of an interest, a little bit of exposure, a lot of awareness. And to be honest, our hope is simply that it provokes the action for somebody to check themselves, to ask that question of a loved one that might be affected by this, but hopefully to catch it early enough so that the effect and the impact on their family is not to the extent where they have to go through things like Dean and James have had to go through. Now, we know these are just two examples of two firefighters, and this spreads far and wide, way beyond the boundaries of the emergency services, but it's our way to be part of something and trying to affect some positive change. So we'll jump in there with Dean and James, and I will see you guys on the other side. Hey, up, gang.
Hello. How are you?
You sound fantastic.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. How was everybody
doing?
I
don't feel it.
No?
Oh, no, we had a busy night last night. Yeah, can't complain.
How's it feeling now we're rolling into the festive period? Because I think it's feeling like they're getting busier, or they're sort of calming down where you are.
No, it just carries on as normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, honestly, it's the only thing that's stopping us doing anything is COVID. What about yourselves? You wind down then, do you?
No, I mean, we still keep pushing hard at work. We've got a couple of people in development at the minute, so there's obviously the older members of the watch, and not necessarily them in an age perspective, but people that have been in for a while who love the idea of the Christmas stand down. I think they'd quite like the idea of that starting in July. But we've got some people going through some development, some people that have just come into the service, and I'm a fiend for development. So anybody gives me an opportunity to work on something with them, it's like kid in a sweet shop, so it's music to my ears.
Brilliant.
So we're leaning into some stuff for them, which is always good for me. It helps me sort of stay in that growth mindset and find different ways to be resourceful of how to support their development. So we've got some cool stuff working, but luckily it doesn't involve everybody all of the time, so you can get the best of both worlds, and I think that's an important part of teams for me, is being able to flex your style as you move from individual to individual. Because if you don't make it about the person, then that's where you start down that route where people don't enjoy coming to work. And I see too much of that sometimes.
Yeah, no, definitely. Completely agree.
What about yourself, James? How's your world, brother?
Where's he gone? He was there.
He's there. His audio's not on though.
Has he accidentally pressed something? He has got his picture. Yeah,
he's got the tricep, the subtle tricep flex is on the go. Shameless.
Tricep tattoo flex in there going on.
I'll tell you what, I'm no.
And the skin fade.
We all have that idea of, and I think this is the whole kind of thing about why a lot of people join the services. We have this idea of, this image of what a great emergency services operator is. And I think subconsciously we gravitate towards that identity, and that kind of speaks about some of the stuff we're going to go on and talk about today in that, what is that sort of person like? When you paint that picture of that person in your head, what does that person like? That person is of good moral value. That person is someone that does what they believe is the right thing to do. Somebody that's a consummate professional, somebody that looks after themselves physically, emotionally, financially, and is constantly developing themselves. And then you kind of, if you can have that identity in your mind, you kind of gravitate towards it. Do you ever feel that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the mind, isn't it, as well? You look up to these people who you sort of idolise in a way or aspire to. And,
how's that changed for you since you've had kids? Has it changed at all, or have you doubled down on it, or has it made you think about it even more? As in, what sort of example am I setting? Because I always think of the hypocrisy of parenting sometimes when we ask children to do things that we're not. Because we ask kids to do some pretty scary stuff, like go and meet people you don't know, go to a new club that you've never been to before, do this new class, and next year you're moving up, and then next year you're moving up, and next year you're moving up, and how do we continue to live with authenticity when we're asking them to do so much scary stuff on a daily basis? Did that change at all for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult being a kid. I remember when I was a kid, it was a long time ago now, but it was, sometimes were difficult. But I think to myself now, with social media, it's such a massive thing, and there's so much fakeness, isn't there? And I think especially, I was going to say especially with girls, but it's probably both genders. That
you've got a boy and a girl, haven't you?
Boy and a girl, yeah. And I don't, with my children, I try and let them make their own decisions. I try to, when they're at crossroads, I try to guide them, if that's the right word. Just guide them, put them the pros and the cons, and try to let them make their own mind up. I don't want to make them do anything they don't want to do.
How do you manage to do that with your kids when there's so many other distracting things in life now, where they're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and trying to create a sort of create an interest in something that would to them seem quite benign or quite simplistic, in wanting to go off in the woods and create a blooming den, or go and learn how to shoot, or go and learn how to just do knots and lines or navigate or anything like that. Because the skill set isn't really what you're trying to teach. You're trying to teach, like you say, a mindset, aren't you?
Yeah, teamwork and leadership. And I think a lot of it, I can describe things to my lad, he's camping this and that, it's sort of going over his head, that sounds interesting. I'm always one of these that says, just try it, and they'll go and try it. Oh yeah, I love that, brilliant, I want to carry on doing this and that.
Do they know what you do for a living? What do the kids think you do? What do the kids think you do?
Oh yeah, they know. They'll overhear me sometimes talking to the wife about, day at work, or, they're very, very much aware of that. I mean, they're at an age, my daughter's 13, my lad's 14, so we can have quite grown-up conversations with them now, which is quite good as well. You have to be careful what you say as well sometimes, because they are listening, they are watching you. So.
They came to France with us, didn't they, when we competed? Was it France?
Yes, yeah, was it 2018, I think, wasn't
it? Something like that, yeah. I remember your son specifically, I think. I spent a little bit of time with your son. He was an absolute dude. And I remember creating a post that we still put on the podcast every now and again, which is, be the firefighter your kids think you are. And that always makes me think of, what's the image that you want to portray, and what is it? What do you want your kids to take away when they see what you do and they see you in your day-to-day work? And what is it you think you're trying to portray?
It's got to be being proud of what you do. And the other thing that when they start, I mean, my lad's already decided on his GCSEs. He's working towards them already. So I had a little bit of input. He just started talking about the future, as to what he wants to be and what he wants to do. So it's quite an important conversation there. But the main thing is to do a job or have a career that you really, really enjoy, really satisfied. I mean, you could earn lots and lots of money in various different jobs, but if you're not enjoying yourself and you're hating going to work, then
you've lost.
What's money? What's money? Yeah, you've lost. So that'll be, for my lads, he's in year 10 now, so GCSEs next year. So it'll be sort of, a little discussion as to what he wants to do. But they're so young. The thing is, they're so young now still. How can you make?
But that's what I mean. That's why the point of doing something that you enjoy is all the more important. For me, it's not about where's it going to lead in the future, and is this part of the economy growing, or is that sector growing, and should you be preparing yourself for a job in X sector? Because you know what, I think we're in such a rapid pace of change that the only constant, the only constant is going to be change. So I think the only people that are really winning are the eternal learners, the eternal students, the people that are so adaptive to change, that jack of all trades, change, who can just pivot, all that sort of stuff. And the tools that you pick up in things like the emergency services really do train a good mindset for adaptability and stuff like that. But people that want to stay stuck in something that they don't particularly enjoy, because people forget, and I think it was a great Jim Carrey quote where he said, you can fail at something you don't love, so you might as well fail at something you love. You can try and build a career for 20 years in an industry that just because it's got a great financial reward, and the industry turns around and shits itself out the other end in a matter of months, and then you've lost.
Yeah, I fell into the trap when I left school. I was sort of set to join sixth form. I ended up getting a part-time job at Royal Mail in the evenings, and I got a little taste for earning a little bit of extra money, while I'm doing my A-level stuff. And then next thing, we booked a lad's holiday, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to go full-time here, and I jacked it all in. I remember my parents, but my mum especially being really disappointed, etc. But that's where I stayed at Royal Mail for a long 20 years. So I sort of came into the fire service quite late. So I was in that trap there, a financial sort of trap as well. Because there was sort of overtime, plenty of overtime, so you could make your money up and sort of earn half decent money, and you sort of get used to that money, and your way of life is.
How did you build up the confidence to change your career at that point in your life? Because it's a fucking brave move to switch over, especially when you already had your youngest by then, did you not? Your oldest, sorry.
Yes, I had, yeah. So I started MOD, Ministry of Defence. So I remember sitting on the sofa and I'd been offered the job. And I was there, shall I to the wife, shall I? She was just looking at me like, are you mad? Are you crazy? This is what you've always wanted to do. Just do it. I'm like, what about money, development? Just do it. We'll cope, we'll manage. You've got to, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? What am I even questioning here? But it was change. It was 20 years of the same thing. It was then, so it was a sort of stepping stone then.
Stay in your box. You're safe in your box. Stay in your box. I might step out onto the ice and fall through, and then everyone will laugh at me, and I'll let my family down. I'll let my kids down, and God, I just can't do that. I'm gonna keep it safe. Yeah, exactly. Financial commitment, especially when you've got children as well. Bloody yeah, mortgages and cars, and we all have the privilege of creating our own unique prisons. How do you want to build your financial prison? People, we brag about it. So look at my house, look at my car. Well done. You have done very well there to build yourself. And this is not me being a pessimist about industry or capitalism. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a game, but you've got to treat it like a game. Do you know what I mean? People say, "Oh, it's not a game, Pete. This is people's livelihoods." You're talking about that's such a cold thing. So it is a game. There's rules to the game. Learn how to play the game. And it is just a big game. We live in a really affluent society. Do you know what I mean? We can't say the opportunities aren't out there. There's never been more opportunities than there is now. Yeah, exactly. And we are only ever here once, and sometimes it can be too late to do something. I know that people say it's never too late to do this. Sometimes it can be, I think so. So, you've got to take your opportunities. Just do it. You'll only regret it, so. Love it. James is in the room. Hello, James.
Hello, sorry. My phone was playing stupid.
You're the youngest of all of us. You're supposed to know how technology works, brother. Come on, you're the blooming technological mastery man behind Cheshire Fire Challenge. We get to get your head out your ass. What's going on, brother?
In my defence, I am very ill. That's what I'm going with. I've got a cold. I've got this irritating thing called COVID. It's just written me off for 2 days.
Oh yeah, of course you have. Yeah.
So I keep muting myself and unmuting myself.
How you doing, my friend? You do sound like you're struggling a little bit.
To be fair, in comparison to where it was 24 hours ago, I'm night and day better. I sound like shit warmed up. I fully grasp that. But as a whole, I'm all right.
Good, because we need you, brother. We need good people like you out there on the front line. Don't be sacking it in. I know a lot of the people are trying to drag you down with all this COVID and craziness, but right, fellas, we wanted to get together because we've been doing some work with the Pink Firefighter stuff over the last sort of year and a bit. Obviously, we're all aware of Vendlin introducing us to this whole kind of thing, and we gave it its first outing at the British Firefighter Challenge last year, or this year as we're still in 2021. And it's just gone really, really well. People acknowledge of how firefighters are stepping forward to use their sort of USP to try and help people. And the stats out there are pretty scary. So this has never really been needed as much as it is now. And I wanted to speak to the two of you because as this whole thing sort of developed, and this is kind of the case, you know, if you step out and try and do something because you believe it's the right thing to do, it's surprising how many people start coming out of the woodwork with their own similar stories and start offering help and support. So, you know, I thank and acknowledge you both for that. So just giving people a little bit of a background. Pink Firefighters Association, we've got the purpose to bring together firefighters and other persons wishing to help, support, provoke, promote and coordinate all initiatives aimed at developing the fight against cancer. Now yourselves, obviously Dean, James, done various things together in the past, and when we look at the sort of stuff that's happening with cancer in the UK at the minute, we've got some stats from 2017 where 366,303 cases of any cancer was diagnosed in 2017, and of these 186,000 were in men, which was a scary statistic for me, and that 1 in 2 people will get cancer at some point during their lifetime. Now, what we do is obviously more geared towards breast cancer, and not just cancer in general, but it is the most common type of cancer among women in the UK, with 54,000 plus new cases. And although it's much less common in men, we still get a lot of people that unfortunately catch a bullet every now and again. Now, I wanted to have the two of you on because you've both sort of got personal stories and things that have impacted it. And, you know, we're going to tell people about a little bit of an event that we're going to put together moving into January. So I wanted to start with yourself, Dean, if we could. Your family's had a pretty, topsy-turvy, rough relationship with cancer. I believe it started with your grandmother, is that right?
Yes, yeah, it did, yeah. So Edith, my grandmother, so she was my dad's mother. She had breast cancer back in the 50s. She had a mastectomy, she had treatment. Goodness knows what the treatment was like back in those days. But unfortunately, she passed away at the age of 42 in 1959. So in that year, my dad was only 15 years old. So you can imagine.
She was 42.
She was 42. Yeah, Jesus, yeah. My dad was 15. Single child as well, so we had no brothers and sisters to sort of fall back on. So you can imagine. I mean, my son is at 14 now. And I can't even think about, you know, how he would be if anything ever happened to his mum. So yeah, so unfortunately, I never had to, due to breast cancer, I never got to meet my grandmother, which is obviously quite sad. You know, I've only the photos back in those days were not the best. You know, I've got a couple of grainy sort of wedding photos, and that's about it.
Especially so that was as well. You know, technology these days, and I think like in this last decade is really how I've become more and more optimistic about what is truly possible in terms of, you know, what we're doing in terms of medical interventions and catching things early and stuff like that. But sorry I interrupted you, but like you say, it's really the time now where I'm getting super optimistic about what is actually possible for us. Oh yeah, goodness me, yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, more and more treatments to cure it, you know, to control pain. I should imagine back in those days, it must have been extremely painful for her. And your grandma was just sort of the first step in all of that sort of stuff, because you actually took it upon yourself. And you did, what did you do? You did a marathon, was it, or you did a big campaign in 2010? You did the London Marathon, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I did that in 2010, but that was off the back of my dad. So Edith, my grandmother, my dad, David, he was diagnosed. Yeah, that's right. A man diagnosed as well with breast cancer. That's a really weird one. 2004. That was the year myself and my wife were getting married. So he was age 60. And there's a bit of a story to that, really. And it's just, and this is why I wanted to raise awareness, is because my dad, he, you know, being a man in his 60s, he found a lump under his nipple. He described it as like the size of a 2 pence piece under his nipple. It actually started to begin to draw the nipple in.
But being a man, not knowing that males can have breast cancer, probably a little bit of ignorance as well.
Yeah.
He didn't really do anything about it until, luckily for him, and obviously because his mum had breast cancer, he obviously was drawn to anything with regards to breast cancer. And he was reading a national newspaper, and he saw this article on breast cancer, so he gave it a read, and it was generally to do with babies. But at the end, there were some figures, and in those figures, he obviously mentioned that males can get breast cancer, and whatever those figures were at the time. So that's giving him a little nudge. Luckily, like I say, if he hadn't come across this, I don't know, he might not be with us. Yeah, that newspaper could have saved his life.
Yeah.
You know, that's awareness. There's some know that article and put that awareness out there. So yeah, so he went to his GP, and they sent him for a mammogram, biopsy, and they diagnosed him with grade 2 breast cancer. But within 10 days of visiting his GP, he was in hospital having a male mastectomy and his lymph nodes removed. But luckily, it hadn't spread. Like I said, if my dad hadn't come across that article, he might not be with us. We don't know. So yeah, that's when so coming back to your original question, that's when I thought, so what can I do? London Marathon, that'll be it. So yeah, I emailed, or it might have been wrote a letter back in the days, I can't remember, but contacted a breast cancer charity, which was the Breast Cancer Campaign, they were called. They're now merged with another breast cancer charity, Breakthrough Breast Cancer, and they're now called Breast Cancer Now. So they were absolutely amazing, you know, with me, the support they gave me and the opportunities they gave me as well, to be able to get this awareness out. You know, I went through my memory box on my door actually just a couple of days ago, and the amount of newspaper clippings in there, you know, national, local, ones, the work papers that go out. There's pictures of me and my dad getting the story, getting the message out there. And we also did I did the BBC Radio Northampton as well. So I did a big interview on there. And so that was it on the side of awareness. And then I committed to raise £1,500, but I managed to double that, and raise £3,000 doing all sorts of different bits and bobs. You know, running on treadmills in shopping centres and golf days and whatnot. So it was good. It was really good. It was a great time, you know, for my dad to be given the all clear, and then for me to go off and do these other challenges. Yeah, and that was probably the London Marathon was the one that sort of sparked off what things I do now. You know, the different challenges. John O'Groats, Land's End, different half marathons, and obviously the firefighter challenge stuff as well. So it was a good year. It was a good year back then.
Did you think you were going to lose him at any point?
No, because he didn't tell. I think when he told us, he sort of said it hadn't spread, you know, and his lymph nodes had been taken out to sort of prevent that. We were sort of very, very positive. It's obviously, don't get me wrong, it's still worrying until you get that all clear. You know, that was a great telephone call when he phoned and said that, you know, he got the great news.
So we've had two people there. Your dad thankfully sort of dodged the bullet. But I remember when we were spending time together at the BFC this year and you saw the whole pink thing. Was it around that time? Because your auntie and on your wife's side as well, you guys have had even more sort of bouts of this as well.
So on the wife's side, her nan, Eileen, she was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 40. She had a mastectomy and she fully recovered. And she lived for another 28 years. And then she lost a battle with a different cancer. She unfortunately passed away from bowel cancer and leukemia. But on the positive side, she was cured of her breast cancer, you know. And again, being my wife's nan, that would have been a long time ago when medicine wasn't as vast as it is now. And then my auntie, which is my mum's sister, she passed away in 2017 after a very long, brave battle, which originally started with breast cancer, and unfortunately spread. And then my mum herself, she's actually living with leukemia at the minute, but touch wood, that's being managed very well. So it's not currently affecting her life, albeit that obviously being extremely careful with COVID at the minute, because you don't know how that will react.
How do you sustain your level of optimism? Because I've met your partner as well, and she's really optimistic. She's super upbeat, and there's not a cloud that lives among the Keeber household, but you'd be forgiven if there was. How do you guys stay so optimistic, and how do you stay in this kind of like bulletproof, control the controllable mindset of it might come and get us one day, but we're here now and we're living for it? People struggle day to day with normal stuff, but how do you sustain that?
You just not have to think about it. If you started thinking and worry, I used to be a right old worrier years ago, and I'd sort of come to the decision and mindset of worrying does nothing. What does worrying do? The only thing I can do is be proactive and check ourselves and sort of learn from experiences. If something isn't right, go see the doctor. But yeah, it is worrying. Obviously, going from my grandmother to my dad, and then I've got a sister as well. So it can be worrying. You think, is it going to come down to us? Is it going to come down to pass to my sister as well? I don't actually know whether she has regular checks or what. I would imagine she does. That's something I've actually discussed with her.
Man, I think it's easier said than done. I think you're doing, you probably have found a bit of disservice there in the fact that I think what you're doing is really difficult. We've only had a couple of challenges faced our way in terms of my partner's dad's got muscular dystrophy, and all my grandparents are dead, but they died of different means. Do you ever find it hard to calibrate yourself when people talk about some of the challenges that they're facing? You build rapport really well with people. You seem quite an empathetic, sympathetic kind of guy, but dealing with some of the challenges that you've got, when you hear what other people are going through, do you find it hard to hear some of the people's challenges and go, Christ, if you could live a year in the household that we've had to sort of go through?
Yeah, I don't know. You get things like a lot of people think cover things up, don't they? And that's the way they deal with things as well. They have really got. You're talking about people, making out there's first world problems.
Yeah.
Sorry, first world problems. Yeah, but I think everyone has their own demons, their own issues, their own things going on. It's just when people choose to share them. But yeah, no, it's the family have been through the other. Coming away from cancer, the other thing my mum and dad had to deal with was my brother, so it'd have been my oldest brother. He passed away at the age of 8 weeks. So again, I've got another brother that I never ever met. Which again, if it can bring you down. It used to a little bit when I was at school, but yeah, you have to pick yourself up and keep going.
James, you've got your own whole set of experiences in this. You've done so many different things in terms of fitness challenges. Obviously, you do a hell of a lot with the Cheshire Fire Challenge. And I'll be honest, when you started gravitating towards wanting to support the pink firefighters and all that sort of stuff, I honestly thought it was just because you wanted some pink fire kit. But lo and behold, you've got a real sort of personal drive behind this as well.
To be fair, I do look really good in pink.
You do look outstanding in it. If anybody hasn't seen the photos of James with the subtle tricep flex that he was kept bringing out at the BFC this year, you were looking good. You were looking in shape, brother.
It's because I put a little bit of effort in, but hadn't put enough effort in. So
okay.
Off the back of it. Genuinely, you know when you do something and you go, I've done really well, and then everyone else goes and you go, I didn't do so well. So
everyone feels like a beast when you're at home training by yourself in a gym, and there's nobody else there. We feel like a right absolute Trojan then. And then, like you say, I was the same. I turned up to some of the competitions there. I was like, Jesus Christ, there's some absolute beasts here.
When I first turned up and saw the tower, and I was like, oh shit, that's massive, and I'm a small person.
I got when you were the steps.
Yeah, I looked at it, I was like, I'm a really small guy. So cancer-wise for me, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because when I first saw the whole Pink Firefighter thing, I thought, this is cool, I can get behind, this is like a really interesting thing I can get behind, because My granddad was a firefighter for Greater Manchester, and he was diagnosed with throat cancer. Unfortunately, got the better of him. Had a pretty nasty fight with it, but such is life, unfortunately. And then
How long was he a firefighter
brother,
for?
a long time. Because when he died, I was about 15, 16 at the time. So I'd heard all these smoky stories about all sorts of stuff, but never actually got into it, finding out what he did and all this, that, and the other. And it was only recently I got onto the historian at Greater Manchester, and he was actually Wellicent. He was part of the team that sort of brought it all out, and when it was on TV and all that, he was the guy that ran it.
Really?
Which is quite
bloody hell.
He was Wellicent for a bit. So that's my claim to fame right there.
Oh man. Do you think any of it came from the job? And again, we're not trying to pin fault on anybody here, but back then, I mean, the fire kit, the PPE, everything was so fast and loose. This is like the poison chalice that you don't realise you picked up 20 years down the line.
Yeah, because you don't want to go, yeah, it was the job, but at the end of the day, I remember him telling me stories about going into jobs without BA, without anything, and just cracking on with it, whereas you go to a car fire now and you put BA on just to be safe, just to be stood out in the fresh air, basically, don't you? So the whole decontamination side of stuff, putting fresh fire kit on,
non-existent.
Yeah.
It wasn't existent 10 years ago when I joined the job. We weren't doing it then.
So and it's only like my generation of firefighters where we're actually going, hang on, let's put our dirty kit in the back of the pump and we'll keep the cab clean, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like we're sort of scratching our heads going, this isn't the best way to do this.
It's the whole difference between obvious and oblivious, isn't it? It's that subtle switch where you go, what if we didn't keep wearing this filthy stuff that we're breathing in? Oh, yeah.
So that was my granddad, and then my nan's brother, he was also a firefighter. He recently died of cancer as well. Again, that was prostate cancer, that one. So it wasn't breast cancer, but he was in the job at the same time as my granddad on the same watch. And then literally, 2 weeks ago, was it? I text you 3 weeks ago. My nan was diagnosed with breast cancer. So and then we're talking about this. I was like, right, if this isn't a sign to get this pink firefighter thing kicking in the UK, what is, sort of thing. So that's why I've been chomping at the bit and going, come on, Pete, let's get going. Come on.
Hey, and I love it. It brings in that sort of social accountability as well, because I think we've all got such a real desire to try and do this. But, James, you do so much of the stuff with all the Cheshire stuff. You both, sustain your own jobs and your own families and stuff like that. And, what we're trying to do is a really positive thing, but it does take up a lot of everybody's time. So we obviously did the kickoff at the BFC last year, and we're actively looking for more people. So this is kind of like a shout out for anybody that feels like this is a worthwhile thing that they want to sort of get involved and support. And coming up in January, we're sort of going to do our first little bit of an event. So a bit of a background on it. James, yourself and I were sort of digging through data in December, and it's all about trying to find an angle and trying to find some numbers and stuff like that. And we had a look back through some of the data that was captured in the UK from 2016 2018. It's similar stuff that I was looking at above, and that said about how 76% of people do survive breast cancer for 10 plus years. We wanted to try and shift that number. So, things like early detection, early response, getting people that critical care as soon as possible. So 76% was something we sort of gravitated to. And then during the same sort of study time, there was 11,547 people that actually died from breast cancer. So we threw those numbers about. We thought about 76 miles or 76 meters or all this sort of stuff. And we're like, oh, well, that sounds ridiculous. That sounds too far or not far enough. And it had to be something that was tasty enough. And obviously in our role as firefighters, we do a lot of lifting and moving, and we do a lot of carrying. So we looked at trying to carry something, and we came up with this idea that we would carry a 76 kilo weight, which is, for anybody that's unfamiliar with kilos, about 12 stone. And we're going to carry that, do over a 10k with it basically. So 11,547 meters, 11.5k, which is just over 7 miles. And we're going to do it around the 10k course in Manchester on January 8th. It's going to be heavy. 12 stone casualty.
It's a ridiculous idea.
It's a big one.
It's just ridiculous. Like the amount of times you have a conversation and go, what's a really stupid idea? Yeah, let's do that. It's a great idea. It's a great cause. But when you think of something and go, there's more than I weigh at the minute.
Yeah.
Just to put that into context, it's more than I actually weigh. We're going to be carrying around for 10k.
Do you know what though? When we're doing what sort of size dummies do you train with in your brigade, Dean?
We have 50s.
Yeah.
If I want to try and get it up to BFC standard, then there is a station that has a 75 kilo dummy, and the difference between the two is
everyone looks at the big
enormous
dummy. They look at the 75 kilo dummy and they're like, oh, that's a bit mean, you know what I mean? You're going to force them to take the 75 kilo dummy, but that's only 12 stone. Do you know what I mean? We're looking at the ever expanding waistline of the UK population. This is a realistic weight that we're going to be trying to shift, but it's not going to be easy. 10k with a 12 stone person on your back, basically.
In fire kit as well.
In full fire kit, yeah. So we're going to be doing this in fire kit, and we're going to rotate through. You know, so there's the whole idea about it being a team effort. Between the three of us, we're going to be trying to capture these moments, share them on social media. It's not a big ego massage for anybody that's listening in. We're trying to raise awareness, and obviously we'll set up a Just Giving page as well, and we want people to try and give a little or a lot, or even just share it. You know, the biggest aspect for this is the whole lot of funding's already there. You know, Breast Cancer Now are a wonderful organisation, and they are there with the quick response telephone calls, and they're able to refer people in the right places, but not enough people know about it. And this really is something that, if you can detect it early, that sounds the greatest likelihood that people are going to make a positive change and make a positive recovery.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I said to you earlier, my story is the biggest thing for me is the awareness. And the key is, like you've just said, just to reiterate, is catching it early. As soon as you spot something, felt something, go get it checked now.
So we bounced around a few ideas of people that we want to try and reach out to, and we're just going to call them out all together. You know, so we've messaged a few newspapers, we've sent emails into the One Show. Who do we want to be reaching out to us? Who's the best people? How can we get that attention? Who are we looking for support from?
Everybody. It's not just, it affects everybody every day. Like, strictly speaking, one of us three will get cancer.
I think it's going to be me. So seriously, right, on a selfish note, I've got 14 lipomas. If you don't know what a lipoma is, it's a tumor, and they're either benign or they're malignant, which means they're either cancerous or they're not. I'm sure you two know more about this than I do. And I've got 2 in my ribs. I've got 1 in my forearm. Anybody that sees a photo of me, they'll see a bulge in my left forearm. It's not my bicep. It's on my left forearm, and it's a rock hard lump. And I've got one of them. Well, I've got 2 in my groin. I've got 2 in my rib cage. I've got 1 on the back of my neck. I have them tested every year. But I always say that's just going to be the biggest irony. I always say, you know, positivity this and high-fiving that and trying to spread good messages and support people. I'm sod's law going to be the guy that ends up getting cancer.
Well, like you just said, you are getting them checked every year, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're on the ball and you're doing something about it, which is the main thing. But fingers crossed. And
I'm sure there's a lot of people that have something like that. They have a thing on their body that's developed over time, and they're like, I'm really not sure about this. I need to get it booked in, and they've got their partner saying, yeah, babe, I'm not really sure what that is, or maybe they don't feel as confident with their body, so they don't check it as often as they should. So we want to encourage people to fall in love with their body. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's looking at a picture, whether it's whatever, get familiar with yourself.
People are scared. You know, my uncle at the minute, I know he hates hospitals, and he was struggling quite bad with the COVID, and he just kept putting it off, you know, before he got help. But it was like, you've got to do something. So people are scared sometimes, aren't they, of the outcome and the result, and they'll just put things off. But that's the worst thing you can do.
Well, burying your head in the sand isn't gonna fit.
Yeah,
it's a bit like saying, when I say to people, you know, you wouldn't not look at your bank account just because you hope it's not empty. The best thing to do is look at it, and if something needs doing, take action against it, because burying your head in the sand isn't going to change reality.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like we've been saying over again, you know, do something about it. But it's understandable, though. It is understandable. People still have that mindset of, it'll go away. You know, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Let's do something about it. Get an expert to have a look at it, and you might be able to make it go away.
So January 8th, I'm going to bring in the kit down. We're going to be using a strongman style super yoke from my old strongman training crazy days. 76 kilos of weight on it. We want people to either drop a message in. They can go to any of our personal pages. So it's either podcast or imagine the Cheshire Fire Challenge, or, you know, Dean, what's the best way for people to either send a suggestion into you, or if they want to support it, what's the best way to people reach out?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. So just Dean Keeber, Facebook or whatever. So yeah, I'm always sort of checking that every now and again. So if anyone did want to get more information or get involved, then
and again, it's not just money. We're not just. I know everyone's struggling for things these days, and everybody's asking for money. We just want people to put a smile on their face, to connect with something that's trying to be a positive change. And even if the only thing they do is turn to their partner and go, "Have Have you checked yourself recently? If it stirs that action, if it causes that conversation, then for me, it's going to be a win.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Beautiful.
Brilliant.
Thanks, fellas. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you sharing those personal stories, because I think so many people are fighting these secret battles that nobody knows anything about. And our hope collectively together, and anybody that's chooses to sort of get involved, is trying to reduce the likelihood of people having to go through some of the things that you both have gone through. And again, try and raise up that 76% and just try and nudge it even 1 or 2% higher through early detection and early action.
Yeah, it's the same as my dad as well. Like I mentioned earlier, for a man to tell people he's got or had breast cancer, or had it, at the time, very, very embarrassing. But he will do it because he wants to let people know. He wants people to check, do something just in case. There's only a small amount of men per year, but if you can help one, or we can help one person, and that's great. Hopefully, we'll help loads of people.
Thanks, fellas. Really appreciate it.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
There we go, gang. It was just a quick one for today, but again, a really important one, a really significant one. Hopefully that stirred a little bit of something in you. If you think this is something that an operational firefighter that maybe wants to get involved in this, maybe you want to get involved in it, you have the power. You can do that. You can share this. You can drop it in the WhatsApp group. You can send it on to somebody else. There is a Just Giving link in the notes to this podcast. It doesn't go in our pockets. It all goes to the charity. And you can do that. You've got the power. If you're still listening now, it's because maybe you want to make a change. Maybe you want to make a difference. Maybe you want to be part of this. So many ways to do it. Reach out to myself, reach out to Dean, reach out to James, send an email to the podcast, contact us on one of our social media pages. You have that power. It's in front of you. You can do it. So thanks for coming back. Thank you for your support. If we're able to go ahead with it on January 8th, we will be doing it. If we can't do it on January 8th, we will keep you updated. But thank you for listening and thank you for coming back. Please share it if you can. We'll see you soon, all right? Right here on the Firefighters Podcast.